Our opening hymn this morning, we have two earth-centered chants from our hymnal. We're going to sing one of them. I'll teach it to you. Then I'll teach you the second one. Then we're going to sing them both at the same time. You can choose to sing the same one over and over. You can switch back and forth between them. You can make up your own thing, whatever. It's a good time for that. Please rise in body or in spirit. The first one is called "The Earth is Our Mother." It goes like this. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. We must take care of her. All together. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. We must take care of her. That one again. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. We must take care of her. The second one sounds like this. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Hey-ya, 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 hey. Choose your own adventure. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. We must take care of her. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. The earth as I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. That was awesome.
Welcome, welcome. So good to see you all. I am the Reverend Lloyd Joiner, Community Minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta, where we are transforming lives through courageous action and soulful connection. Was that not soulful connection? Welcome on this Thanksgiving weekend. Welcome to all who are grateful and all who are weary. To you who are in need of solace and you who come with a sweet song in your heart. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrive here today, you are welcome. We come together with hearts full of the global and the local, full of the communal and the personal. We come in need of a word, and we come bearing a message of hope. We come inspired, and we come to be inspired. We are a faithful, gentle, angry, brokenhearted, and joy-filled people, are we not? And we are here to worship together. So welcome. I would now like to invite my daughter, Arden Joiner Clark, to light our chalice. Let us say the words of the chalice lighting together. May the light of this flame illuminate our tradition of seeking, invite all who yearn for acceptance, and ignite our passion for justice and peace. I have a story, thank you, Arden. I have a story to share with you this morning. It's one of my favorites. And one of the things that I love about our community is that we speak with many different idioms. This is a story that speaks in God language. So I'm about to say the word God a lot of times. And I want to tell you that because I know we have a lot of people for whom that is not your language, right? We have a lot of folks who are atheists or agnostics in the house. And I invite you to let this story just wash over you. Let the beauty of the watercolors wash over you. Let the sounds wash over you. And listen to this story, an origin story. Our story is entitled Old Turtle by Douglas Wood. Watercolors by Cheng Kichi. Once, long, long ago, and yet somehow not so long, when all the animals and the rocks and the winds and the waters and the trees and the birds and the fish and all the beings of the world could speak and understand one another, there began an argument. It began softly at first, quiet as the first breeze that whispered, "He is a wind who is never still." Quiet as the stone that answered, "He is a great rock that never moves." Gentle as the mountain that rumbled, "God is a snowy peak high above the clouds." And the fish in the ocean that answered, "God is a swimmer in the dark blue depths of the sea." "No," said the star. "God is a twinkling and a shining far, far away." "No," replied the ant. "God is a sound and a smell and a feeling who is very, very close." "God," said the antelope, "is a runner, swift and free, who loves to leap and race with the wind." "She is a great tree," murmured the willow, "a part of the world, always growing, always giving." "You are wrong," argued the island. "God is separate and apart." "God is like the shining sun far above all things," said the blue sky. "No, God is a river who flows through the very heart of things," thundered the waterfall. "She is a hunter," roared the lion. "God is gentle," chirped the robin. "God is powerful," growled the bear, and the argument grew louder and louder and louder and louder until stop! A new voice spoke. It rumbled loudly like thunder, and it whispered softly like butterfly sneezes. That voice seemed to come from, Old Turtle. Now, Old Turtle hardly ever said anything and certainly never argued about things like God, but now Old Turtle began to speak. "God is indeed deep," she said to the fish in the sea, "and much higher than high," she told the mountains. "He is swift and free as the wind and still and solid as a great rock," she said to the breezes and the stones. "She is the life of the world," Turtle said to the willow, "always close by, yet farthest beyond the farther twinkling light," she told the ant and the star. "God is gentle and powerful and above all things and within all things. God is all that we can dream of and all that we seek," said Old Turtle, "and all that we come from and all that we can find. God is," said Old Turtle. Now, Old Turtle had never said so much before, and all the beings of the world were quite surprised and became very quiet. But Old Turtle had one more thing to say. There will soon be, she said, a new family of beings in the world. They will be strange, and they will be wonderful. They will be a reminder of all that God is. They will come in many colors and shapes with different faces and different ways of speaking. Their thoughts will soar to the stars, but their feet will walk the earth. They will possess many powers. They will be strong and yet tender, a message of love from God to the earth and a prayer from the earth back to God. And the people came. But the people forgot. They forgot that they were a message of love and a prayer from the earth, and they began to argue about who knew God and who did not, and where God was and where God was not, and whether God was or was not. And often the people misused their powers, and they hurt one another. They even killed one another, and they began to hurt the earth until finally even the forests began to die. And the rivers and the oceans and the plants and the animals and the earth herself, because the people could not remember who they were or where God was. Until one day there came a voice like the growling of thunder, but soft as a butterfly sneezes. "Please," the voice said, "stop." The voice seemed to come from the mountain, who rumbled. Sometimes I see God swimming in the dark blue depths of the sea. And from the ocean who sighed, he is often among the snow-capped peaks reflecting the sun. And from the stone who said, sometimes I feel her in the breath that blows by. And the breeze who whispered, I feel the presence as I dance among the rocks. And the star that said, God is very close. And the island that said, God's love touches everything. And so after a long, lonesome, and scary time, the people listened. And the people began to hear and to see the ultimate in one another and in the beauty of all the earth. And Old Turtle smiled. I would like to invite my family now to come forward, my husband Anthony and my daughters Arden and Sora, and we will lead the movement prayer. And so as they come forward, I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join along with us. First, we bow to honor the Spirit of life. We lift our arms to embrace the gifts of Spirit. We bring these gifts unto ourselves with gratitude and breathe and smile. We share these gifts with the world. We remember to be present, honor, embrace, gratitude, share, be present.
At this time, we'd like to invite our children, 3rd grade and under, to exit and join their preschool or creative workshops just right down the hall on the 1st floor. As our children recess, please take this opportunity to greet your neighbor, especially someone you may have not met before.
going to dedicate this next song, probably the most perfect funeral rite song that's ever been written by Pete Seeger. We're dedicating it to a former member here by the name of Russ Netterville. His rites are going to be celebrated at 12:30 this afternoon at our Memorial Gardens. Flowers were dedicated by his family. He was probably as close to a perfect gentleman as I've ever had the presence of meeting, and that takes a lot of people into consideration since I'm 84 years old. So this song is dedicated to him. Pete Seeger himself died about 10 years ago, and he contributed his molecules to the earth, and that's what we're singing about. To my old brown earth, and to my old blue sky, I now give these last few molecules of I. And you who sing, and you who stand nearby, I do charge you not to cry. Guard well our human chain, watch well you keep it strong, as long as sun will shine. And this our home, keep pure and sweet and green, for I am yours, and you are also mine. Guard well our human chain, watch well you keep it strong, as long as sun will shine. And this our home, keep pure and sweet and green, for now I'm yours, and you are also mine.
At dusk, I see an eagle's silhouette drifting around her distant nest, and think how close to stark extinction she has come, the ultimate defeat, contingent on some human whim or human greed that would usurp her space. And yet, she floats so seemingly serene, as if the tides of air were everything that needed to be understood, as if the whole accumulation of the past were now, and now again, and now forevermore. about to be with nothing unfilled to long for, nothing to regret. And without envy, only with a kind of love, because she helps me almost to forget myself. I watch her tilted wings glide off and lift, swooping in some smooth current I assume she uses and takes pleasure in, without the need to say how she enjoys herself to make joy true. And so I listen to my thoughts take flight. I watch a second silhouette give further depth and amplitude to space, circling as if their hidden nest was the sure center of the universe, a universe with purpose, an unchanging permanence, complete by being only what it is. And so I try to think myself released from thinking of myself by fixing on the eagle's dips and swerves around their nest, my mind filled with their forms, the angles of their silhouettes, their curves.
There is more of somewhere. There is more of somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere.
Let us put hands on hearts. Feel the heartbeat, the connection to life. Breathe in peace. Say to yourself silently, I will love myself. I will love others. And that love can heal the world. We hold in reverent care this morning the people of the Middle East, especially the residents of Israel and Palestine, those facing the devastating losses of loved ones, those celebrating the return of their beloveds, those who are waiting. And we pray this morning for a lasting peace. You are invited to say the names of people you are holding in your hearts this morning. Speak their names out loud into this holy space now. May all beings find connection. May all people find comfort, and may all of us find ways to be more loving to one another. Spirit of life, love, eternal, we rest in holy gratitude. We surrender to a mystery beyond ourselves, asking forgiveness for our mistakes, for those times we have been selfish or thoughtless. Breathing in and breathing out, we offer grace. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We honor our earth who sustains and supports life. We breathe in and open our hearts to wonder for just this moment. Feel a deep connection with all beings. Let us calm our bodies and our minds. We breathe in peace, and then we exhale. We relax into this space that our intentions make sacred. We enter into the silence.
Good morning. Thank you. This month, we're sharing the plate with a very special place, Nicholas House. First, let me thank everyone who helped with our work day last weekend, and all those who have helped serve our many meals there. Your help means so much to the families. The special thing about Nicholas House is it keeps the families together. Together is a key word here. Most shelters divide their residents by gender and age. Fathers cannot stay with their families. Teenage boys are separated from their mothers. Large families, in particular, have trouble staying together. You can meet all kinds of families at Nicholas House: single parent, two parent, and no parent families. I met one family that I assumed was a two-parent family, 2 adults and 4 children. I was surprised. Actually, the adults were older siblings, a brother and a sister, who are holding their family together. At Nicholas House, they were able to stay together, not being split apart and not being placed in foster homes. The shelter that we painted and cleaned is only the first step for the families. Once they complete the program, caseworkers help them move to self-sufficiency. They get help with moving expenses, rental deposits, turning on the lights, and paying the first month's rent can be major obstacles if you're living paycheck to paycheck. I love visiting Nicholas House. I love seeing the children laughing and playing. I love seeing the teenagers doing dance steps in the common room. At Nicholas House, kids can be kids, despite the stresses that their families are going through. Please give generously. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
May I say a word about our piano player and singer today, Don Milton. I can barely walk and chew gum at the same time, and this guy here is going to sing alto in place of Pam Kilmer, who's got a sore throat today, and he is singing in the quartet in place of her, and he's going to play the piano at the same time. So let's give him all the credit in the world.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how they do. They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
And now, please join me in the dedication of the offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action we call community, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Well, good morning again, and happy Thanksgiving. I want to thank our musicians this morning. What a joy it is to share the chancel with you all. Thank you. I'm so grateful to be together this weekend, and I'm so grateful for this past week. You see, I was off work all week. And I went to the gym twice. It had been a minute, and I'm not going to lie, it was a struggle. It was a struggle, but I kept up with the class, and I know that something happened in my body because I sure was sore afterwards. I love that kind of sore, though. You know, that kind of sore that tells you that your body has been working. It's when the ache of muscles, it's not just an ache, but it's an ache with a purpose. And it tells you that they are actively becoming stronger. That's a good kind of sore. It's also a good metaphor, and a preacher loves a really good metaphor. So this morning, we continue our worship series on hope with a reflection on what lasting, effective, diligent hope looks like in the face of the largest existential crisis currently facing our species and our planet. So I want us to think together about what kind of spiritual muscles are required for that kind of hope and how we can strengthen them. Cristiana Figuera is the Costa Rican diplomat who served as executive secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change from 2010 to 2016. She says that climate change is the gym in which we as human beings are strengthening our muscle to be able to evolve to a much higher sense of awareness, consciousness, and action. The way we understand that, she says, is measured by the way we understand ourselves in our relationship with nature. So let's talk about the shifts in our understanding that are required to do this. First, we'll tackle the nature of the crisis and how we relate to it. And then we'll explore possibilities for rejuvenation and restoration because they are there, both new emergent technologies and old strategies of rest and reduction. We'll reflect on what each of us is called to do and simultaneously what it means, as the poet says, to forget ourselves in the interest of something greater. So are you ready for a workout? Should we strengthen some spiritual muscles? Let's do it. It was Krista Tippett of On Being fame, who introduced me to the concept of what she calls muscular hope. I love that. The kind of hope, she says, is needed for our day and age. This is not pie-in-the-sky hope. This is put your nose to the grindstone and your hands in the earth kind of hope. This is the kind of hope that requires work and commitment. Muscular hope invites and beckons, calls and commands. It's the kind of hope that will not let us go. It's the kind of hope that will not die, because it's kindled through our connection. It's kindled through the ways that we remind each other who we are as human beings, as Unitarian Universalists, as people of faith and hope and light and love. This is muscular hope. It is the kind of hope we desperately need right now, and in fact, it's the kind of hope humanity has always needed. I would argue it's the kind of hope we've always had, because it is how we have survived, and it is how we will survive. I don't need to outline the climate crisis for you. You read the newspaper, you listen to the news, unless you don't, because it's too toxic for you, and in that case, more power to you. But we all know that the climate is changing. We all know that we are approaching many and have already surpassed some of the tipping points that scientists have identified as critical. We know that the year 2030 is a crucial bellwether for the progress we need to make in terms of reducing and even reversing some of the effects of climate change. We know that time is running out. And we know that politics and capitalism and racism and globalization are slowing things down in ways that have potentially disastrous consequences. So we don't have to detail the crisis, but hear these words from the poet David White, who talks about the word crisis this way. Crisis, he says, is unavoidable. Every human life seems to be drawn eventually toward the raw, dynamic essentials of its existence, as if everything up to that point had been preparation for a meeting, for a confrontation in elemental form with our essential flaw. This experience, he says, where the touchable rawness of life becomes part of the fabric of the everyday, and a robust, luminous vulnerability becomes shot through with the necessary, imminent, and inevitable prospect of loss, has been described for centuries as the dark night of the soul. But perhaps, he says, this dark night could be more accurately described as the meeting of two immense storm fronts, the squally, vulnerable edge between what overwhelms human beings from the inside and what overpowers us from the outside. What overwhelms us from the inside and what overpowers us from the outside. This is crisis. Are we not there? There where the touchable rawness of life, the transience, the impermanence, the preciousness of this life, of all life on this blue boat home planet of ours, is shot through with the prospect of loss. We could lose it all. Crisis, indeed. But White does something remarkable with his exploration of crisis. He tells us that we know it. We know it. It is the part of the fabric of our being. For him, existential crisis is our birthright. And it's true, is it not? Unitarian Universalist theologian Forrest Church calls religion the human response to being alive and knowing that we must die. Existential crisis is our birthright as human beings. As we sit here, breathing together, being together, we are also growing older together. Each one of us, one breath closer to our last. And so if this is the case, I would argue that we already have inside of us everything we need to shoulder and weather this climate crisis that now threatens not only our existence as individuals, but as a species, and the existence of all we hold dear. We have forgotten that we have everything we need inside of us, just as the story says. We have forgotten, but it does not make it any less true. In our human quest for domination and control, we forgot that we were a prayer from the earth, that we were created from the earth, not apart from it, not over and above it, but part of all that is. Now, there is in the Western consciousness the small matter of another story, that told in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 28, in which God sends the first humans into the world and said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." Now, whether or not this scripture is one that we individually imbue with authority, it has, without a doubt, empowered human beings for millennia to run roughshod over the planet, believing that the way that we use the planet's resources has been divinely sanctioned. Today, there is a growing Christian movement that makes a distinction between the terms dominion and stewardship. And I find this fascinating. These folks argue that the former, dominion, is our birthright as human beings, and that the latter, stewardship, is therefore our responsibility. Pope Francis himself has been a leader in this interpretation of biblical texts. In his 2015 papal encyclical, that's a hard phrase for a sermon, papal encyclical, the Laudato Si, he argues this. He says, the biblical texts are to be read in their context with an appropriate hermeneutic, recognizing that they tell us to till and keep the garden of the world. Tilling, he says, refers to cultivating, plowing, or working, while keeping means caring, protecting, overseeing, and preserving. This implies a relationship, he says, of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. This distinction between dominion and stewardship and this idea of mutual responsibility are both based in interpretations of power. You see, another way to translate that original verse is to say that human beings are commanded by the ultimate to rule over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air, etc. And so my question is, what does it mean to rule? What does it mean to have power in any given situation? To be responsible for creating laws that will govern behavior, protect what needs protecting, prohibit that which does not serve. What does it look like to use the awesome intellectual, creative, and technological power we possess as human beings in ways that serve not only the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air, but every living creature, every living thing that moves upon the earth, including ourselves and our fellow human beings? This looks different for each one of us. For some, it is a personal endeavor, and for others, it is a professional one. I stand before you today with more climate hope than I have ever had before because of my spouse's professional work. Nothing has given me more hope about the state of and the future of our planet in recent years than my husband Anthony starting a new role in his work this past spring. The more I have learned about the emerging climate technologies that Anthony is researching, funding, and helping to scale up, the more I have faith in the profound possibilities of human ingenuity. He works with companies who are developing technology to capture carbon from the air, to capture carbon from building emissions, from the oceans, to sequester it, or to place it in new building materials. These technologies are remarkable, and more of them are being developed every day. The truth is, we have everything we need to solve this problem. We simply have to prioritize the use of our power differently. Now, it is important to recognize here that we are, whether we want to admit it or not, we are the beneficiaries of the fossil fuel era. That the technological advancements that make the next era possible have been developed because of the progress that the last era has enabled. And that we here, each of us has become accustomed to the energy-rich technologies of food procurement and healthcare and resource consumption that fossil fuels have made possible. I suggest, though, that we let go of our guilt around this reality. Let's let it go and move on. Christiana Figueres says, let's be thankful, stay with me, let's be thankful to the oil and gas industry that powered at least half of the world and gave creature comforts to half of the world in the past century. She says, thank you for that. And now, my dear oil and gas industry, you are facing your expiration date, she says. Because we no longer need you. We now have much better technologies that can actually power the whole world, not just half. But the climate challenge requires not only the prioritization of these new technologies, not only research and development, not only private sector investment, it also demands political and social action, rigorous political and social action. It also requires us to look to the ingenuity and the efficiency of indigenous communities and developing economies that achieve lower environmental impact in creative ways by being more conscious about consumption and about necessity. What is it that we need, really need? The crisis we face now requires systemic change that can only be achieved through a collective call and collective commitment. And this work is energizing, but it is also exhausting. It requires profound strength and resilience on behalf of each of us. And the good news is that we have everything we need to access these things too. A huge portion of this work is reprioritization on a personal level. So we begin by acknowledging that each of us here swims in the sea of capitalism-fueled consumption. We are members of what is known as the developed world. We swim in that sea. But what if we stepped out of the water? What if, even for one day a week, we were to radically reduce our consumption by rediscovering an ancient practice, that of rest? In his book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which I am currently reading, the author John Mark Comer argues that a weekly Sabbath is both a practice of revolutionary resource conservation, think about it, and an act of rebellion, he says, against our greed-driven capitalist culture that is fueled in large part by a modern-day slave trade. We live in a culture of more, he says. And globalism and capitalism have made slaves of both rich and poor. One thing I can do, he says, is to do nothing for one day a week. Symbolically, at the very least, allowing slaves to rest for a day. By practicing Sabbath, he says, we can play a small part in justice for the world. Now, I am a UU, born and bred, who loves her Bible. And so I love that this strategy is also biblical. Because if we go back to that original Genesis text, the second chapter begins with a big old cosmic nap. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and on the seventh day God ended God's work and rested. Let's pause for a minute here. Again, whether or not this scripture is your holy text, let's just take in the radical nature of the statement, God rested. If we define God as the biggest, the most grandiose, and most powerful force in the universe that our limited human consciousness can conceive, and if we bring this notion to the forefront that this creative force that brought into being all that we know, in the biblical story, it happened in 6 days. In the story science tells us, it happened in one fell swoop, in a big bang. It happened really quickly regardless, but if we have the notion that this creative force stopped after all that work of creation for just a moment to rest, that's something. And you know what it tells me? It tells me that it is okay, it is more than okay, it is crucial for us also to forget ourselves for a moment in the purpose and the unchanging permanence of the universe. We can rest too. And we have to. Because we must do the inner work of keeping hope alive. The inner work of regenerating our own selves, our own agency, our own capacity to engage in order to stay in the outer work of conservation and cultivation and regeneration of our communities and our planet. We cannot despair. We cannot let the inner or the outer crisis overwhelm us. And so let us take solace in the fact that we have everything we need to solve this problem. Beyond solving it, to reimagine it, to create new technologies that we cannot even envision yet, and to rediscover age-old ways of being that both reduce our footprint on the earth, consider our fellow human beings, and increase our own quality of life. in order to do the ongoing work required of us as a species, not only for our own survival, but for the survival of every living thing and of the planet itself, we must acknowledge the losses we have already faced, the suffering we have already caused, and the lives that have been and will be lost in the face of climate change. We have to grieve. And solace comes not in the place of that grief, but in the midst of it. We know what it means to be alive and to know that we must die. We know what it is to face loss as the unbearable pain of being human. It is pain that each of us must bear. And we also know what it is to hope in the face of that grief. We know what it is to hold on, to grip, and to grasp, and to build spiritual muscles. The spiritual muscles that it takes to be a living, a breathing, a hopeful human being. We have everything we need inside of us already. But let us not forget to look to the eagles. And let us not forget to sing.
Please rise in body or in spirit. Flow below me, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat.
Take solace, friends, in eagles, in the wide universe. Take solace and give thanks for all that is, for all that we are a part of, for all that we are called to do and to be and to hold on to. Put your hands in the dirt and find that muscular hope, the hope that will carry us through and on into a future we are just beginning to imagine. A future for ourselves and for our children and for our children's children. A future for our pure and sweet and green home, this wonderful world, our one and only.
I give thanks to the waves upholding me, and the great winds urging me on. Grieve the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sailor song. I was born above the fathoms, never harbor on board have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat.
Go in peace, everybody.